Welcome back to the Equilibrium Report, where we step away from slogans and look at where power actually flows. Today's topic cuts across party lines, even though both sides pretend it doesn't. Why energy projects, pollution, and environmental damage so often end up in rural communities, even when the political demand comes from urban, democratic strongholds. And why this pattern keeps repeating no matter who's in charge. Here's the basic contradiction no one likes to say out loud. America's largest city, which overwhelmingly vote Democratic, consume the most energy. They demand reliability, scale, and affordability. They want clean air locally, uninterrupted power, and low prices. But they don't want the infrastructure nearby. So where does it go? Rural areas, small towns, low population counties with little political leverage. Refineries, pipelines, fracking sites, compressor stations, waste facilities, transmission corridors, the physical burden of powering cities is exported outward, away from voters who can meaningfully resist. On paper, this looks like a conservative problem. The industries involved, oil, gas, mining, large-scale power, and are culturally aligned with the right, and conservatives often defend them rhetorically. But here's the part that gets memory hold. Those projects don't move forward without permits. They don't get financed without state and federal approval. They don't get built without urban demand guaranteeing profit. Democratic administrations routinely approve or quietly tolerate these projects while maintaining green rhetoric for their base. The pollution happens somewhere else, so the political cost stays low. Everyone gets what they want, except the people living next to the contamination. This creates what are effectively sacrifice zones, places where groundwater contamination is acceptable. Cancer clusters are inconclusive. Air quality violations are within tolerance. Cleanup is promised later, if ever. These communities don't have lobbying power. They don't dominate media narratives, and they're often politically dismissed as expendable. Not because they deserve it, but because they're easy. This is where modern environmental politics gets uncomfortable. Environmental concern is often sincere, but selectively applied. Cities demand sustainability while externalizing its costs. They oppose pollution in principle, but accept it in practice as long as it's invisible. It's not anti-environment, it's environmental outsourcing. Clean living for dense populations, dirty production for everyone else. Now let's talk about the part that sounds conspiratorial, but doesn't require a conspiracy. When rural communities degrade, health outcomes worsen. Land becomes less livable. Younger people leave. And where does everyone end up? Where do they go? Back to the cities, rounded back up by society. You don't need secret meetings to see the incentive structure. Economic pressure and environmental decline naturally centralize populations. And centralized populations are easier to govern, easier to surveil, easier to tax, easier to influence politically. Rural lifestyles, independent, land-based, decentralized, don't fit neatly into modern administrative systems, so they're allowed to wither. This also reshapes political power. Rural areas lose population and representation. Urban centers gain both. That doesn't require malice, just indifference. And indifference, when repeated for decades, looks a lot like intent. Policies don't have to say, eliminate rural life, to produce that outcome. They just have to consistently prioritize efficiency, density, and growth over sustainability. Democrats won't admit this because it contradicts their moral branding. Republicans won't admit it because they defend the industries doing the damage. So the truth sits in the middle, untouched. Urban voters get clean streets and reliable power. Energy companies get profits. Politicians get stability. Rural communities get told it's the price of progress. A balanced system would distribute energy production more evenly, invest seriously in rural cleanup and healthcare, allow communities real veto power, stop pretending consumption has no footprint, but that would require honesty about trade-offs, costs, and who really benefits. And honesty is bad in politics. Another overlooked factor is control. Many projects are negotiated far from the communities they affect. State offices, federal agencies, corporate boards. Local voices are often heard late, not early, after the economic math is already locked in. That imbalance isn't conservative or liberal, it's centralized power versus local autonomy. The main point about all of this is the ruin it has on these communities. It's a deliberate act, whether bipartisan or one-sided, to eradicate rural areas and rural lifestyle and force everyone into the cities. Eventually, sooner or later, but that is the long-term agenda and goal to all of this. People don't move to small towns, ranch land, or farming communities because they want a quieter version of the city or because they want to build another city in another space. They move there to escape density, to protect land, water, air, and silence, to obtain some sort of peace, to raise food, families, and livestock without industrial pressure pressing in from every side. Large-scale energy and infrastructure agendas do the opposite. They import the city's footprint without importing the city's benefits. And again, if people want city benefits, they would move and live in the city. That's always the option. We don't need to build more cities or create more growth in areas where people are living peaceful, comfortable lives, minding their own business, not being contaminated and polluted on. Some people enjoy darkness and the night sky. I've been personally affected by this type of stuff. I've lost a home and over $100,000 because of well water contamination from oil and gas operations in a blue state. Nobody helped me. Nobody cared. The community is ruined, and they keep passing that buck to new victims. They're just creating new victims rather than shutting it all down and being honest. They keep selling the houses to the new people over and over. And nobody wants to be honest about it because, one, no one will listen to you, and two, it's going to destroy your credit, your livelihood. You're going to not be able to buy another house. You're going to have to go into some form of debt. You're going to have a lot of problems from that. On top of your health being absolutely destroyed. So, yeah. So again, really any arguments for this are invalid because people don't move out into these communities because they want the city benefits. And maybe if they do, they need to rethink that, because without thinking about it, people probably would get sucked into it like, oh, cool, I'll have a McDonald's close by. And then once you start building, so you build this nuclear plant out here, and what happens, what comes with all of that? Oh, they're going to build more housing, so more neighborhoods are going to pop up. You're going to have more neighbors. You're going to have new people moving in, because more than likely the people in the communities are not even going to be hired to work there, maybe for the beginning stages like the construction and setup, which will be a temporary thing. And then what has to come with all of that? More houses, more cars, more gas stations, more fast food crap that no one needs out here. And it quickly turns into the same shit that's everywhere else. You're no longer this country town. You're no longer this rural community. And also, what's likely to happen is they're going to import labor from somewhere else, meaning from the cities or from other countries. I've seen this everywhere. I have seen this everywhere. So think about that when it comes to your community being destroyed, because it's going to be destroyed in every which way possible. No more clean air. No more night sky. No more water. If you need more opportunities, then go to places that have more opportunities. Don't ruin the places that people are trying to live, and escape all that. That type of lifestyle isn't for everybody. Just like rural lifestyle isn't for everybody. But both need to be able to exist, and people need to be able to have options. I personally feel like this is a direct attack on rural communities, and it's being allowed, and your politicians and representatives are selling you out. They're selling you out. And in this community is a lot of cattle, ranches, feedlots for cattle, and a lot of farms. And that's all going to be at risk and ruined. I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm going to fight this. And if I have to, I will run for office. I'm going to start going around in my community and asking people how they feel about this. And I'm going to start bringing these points to their attention. Do you want foreigners moving into your neighborhood? Do you want a bunch of gas stations and fast food shit brought in here? Do you want to have a bunch of lights coming from this huge nuclear reactor all the time that just glow off in the distance and constantly pump out some kind of pollution? Or you got to worry about some waste or accident that happens? Because that's what's going to happen at some point. I remember a long time ago, someone was talking about these politicians that were buying into small reactor technology. And they mentioned how this is going to get put up later in the future. And you can tell that they're laying the psychological foundation for this with the Fallout TV series and, other things that they bring up. But we've all seen what can happen. And when it does happen, those areas are forced to evacuate. You can no longer live in those areas, and they're ruined. They're ruined. They're completely ruined. Chernobyl, ruined. Fukushima, ruined. And I feel like this is going to be a part of some long-term agenda where they have these all over rural communities, these data centers, these nuclear reactors, and it's just going to ruin everything like that. But then if there's an accident that happens, well, then it's definitely ruined, and it's going to force people into certain areas, cities. And you got to look like way into the future about all this. But eventually, and they always, it'll be like Hunger Games. People are going to be in designated zones that you can live in, and then vast sections are going to be off limits. Not saying this is like next year or tomorrow. This is a long-term thing. Long-term. Very long-term. But the consequences now, like I said, I've been affected in these energy industries. I know hundreds and thousands of other people have as well, and that no one listens to you. No one will listen to us about this. And I'm going to try my best to get people to understand what's really what's really at stake here. You're going to lose rural communities. You're going to lose what you came out here for. You're going to lose what traditions and values you have and want. You're going to lose everything that you like about these places. They're going to be gone. And like I said, how many people are going to be getting hired from the areas? Like, I don't think there's a ton of engineers or nuclear engineers out here. You know what I mean? It's not going to be worth it. You know what I mean? They could put this stuff somewhere else. So yeah, once these projects arrive, the defining features of rural life begin to erode fast. Constant industrial noise, heavy traffic on roads never built for it, zooming by your house every day, all day, every morning, blah, 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 kicking up dirt, being loud, where it was once peaceful and quiet. Land fragmentation that breaks farming and grazing routes, water drown downs and contamination risks, zoning changes that permanently alter what can be built nearby. This isn't development, it's a conversion. A place designed to produce food, stability, and space gets converted into a support zone for outside demand. Because we sure as shit don't need nuclear energy out here. We literally have a giant solar farm, and I'm going to go take videos of it. It's literally in the town. I'm sure it can power the whole freaking town. It's giant. You know? And people are still using propane out here. So I doubt the energy demand is that great out here. I know it's not. Rural areas are not just empty. They're productive. They grow food. They raise livestock. They maintain soil health and water cycles that cities depend on but never see. Industrial energy projects compete directly with this role. Land once used for crops becomes restricted or unusable. Water, once reserved for irrigation, is diverted to cooling, processing, or construction. And we have a giant canal that runs around the entire area out here. I'm sure that's going to get ruined somehow. Contamination doesn't just affect one property, it affects entire watersheds. When farming becomes harder or riskier, families don't fight forever. They sell, they leave, and production drops even more. And the costs show up later as higher food prices, imports, and shortages elsewhere. Cities consume first, rural areas absorb the damage first. And they'll try to trick people and frame it as a local benefit. You'll hear promises, jobs, tax revenue, revitalization, growth that nobody wants or asked for. What's usually left unsaid, most jobs are temporary. Specialized labor is imported. Profits leave the region. Tax deals often expire long before cleanup costs appear. Meanwhile, what does stay is permanent. Industrial zoning, lower property values, health uncertainty, and infrastructure stress. Once a place is reclassified as industrial, it is very hard to reclaim as agricultural or residential again. That's a one-way door. These projects rarely land where resistance is strongest. They land where population is sparse, political attention is low, and land is framed as underused. But underused usually means not monetized at scale, not crowded, not loud. In other words, working as intended. If people wanted to live next to industrial hubs, data centers, reactors, or processing facilities, they wouldn't have moved away from the cities in the first place. Forcing those systems into rural communities doesn't modernize them. It ends them. Not all at once, not with explosions or headlines, but with slow replacement of land, water, and quiet with infrastructure that serves someone else. Once a rural place is turned into a utility zone, it almost never goes back. The question isn't whether energy is needed. The question is why the cost is always paid by the people who tried hardest to live differently. Politics on the local to the grand level is all a scheme and all based on corruption and greed. So your little local county official and your little mayor and your little this and that all the way up, everyone's getting some form of kickback. Lauren Boebert, the representative for all of southern Colorado on both the western and eastern slope, west of the Front Range, east of the Front Range. I really doubt she's advocating and pushing for nuclear reactors in her community. I really doubt that. Lauren Boebert has backed nuclear energy as part of an all-of-the-above approach. During earlier interviews and campaign statements, Boebert said she favors nuclear power as an option within a broader energy strategy. In an interview as a Republican congressional candidate, she specifically said the U.S. needs to explore more nuclear energy if the country wants to go green, and criticized colleagues who she said do not seriously consider nuclear options. But I bet she doesn't want them in her community or down the street from her rural neighborhood, if she even cares about that anymore. And Colorado just recently added nuclear reactors to their green energy plan. So this is all an agenda, a bipartisan agenda to destroy rural communities, because this serves the greater agenda to get everyone into city zones and to restrict land use for industrial purposes that benefit the society or whatever the heck. So yeah, she's not going to save you or save us. I doubt we have anyone out right now that is trying to save this. I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one that tries to save rural America. Not just rural Colorado, but all of rural America. Everyone that wants to live in the country, you know. I'm going to be the only one trying to look out for you on this stuff and trying to raise awareness about it and be honest about it. I don't give a shit which political side is doing what. Like, I don't want any of this shit around me. Like, I've already been a victim of it and didn't get anything for it or no help and actually got threatened and harassed for it. So I'm going to fight this with all I can, and I'm going to get everyone around here pissed off about it. And we're coming for you, Lauren Boebert. Since you're not going to help us, I'm going to take your fucking job. You understand? I'm coming. So yeah, I'm not going to sit by and have this happen again now that I finally found somewhere I love. It took me 10 years and five houses and properties of getting fucked around, pushed around, screwed around with, losing tons of money, to finally find somewhere I can have some damn peace. And I was only able to be out here for 1 year, exactly, before they start fucking trying to ruin it and throw this shit out. I'm already having dump trucks hauling some shit out here that they dump on someone's land, zooming by my house every day. We got a survey in the mail about this shit from the Energy Impact Fund, asking stupid shit like, oh, do you want more jobs, or do you think clean water and air is a weakness? You know, so you know they're trying to ruin everything. No, we're not doing this. We're not going to allow this. I know there's no way in hell these people want that. They might get brainwashed or sucked into the bullshit that they're trying to promote, but no, I'm going to remind these people, like, no, this isn't going to work out the way you think. You know, it's just not. Everything you like about being out here is going to be ruined. You're no longer going to like it. You're going to complain about it. You're not going to like the people coming in. You're not going to like the changes that occur. It's not going to be what you had anymore. It's going to be what we all came out here to escape and avoid. Energy policy isn't about slogans. It's about trade-offs. And any community, rural or urban, deserves the full truth before accepting permanent consequences for temporary promises. This is the Equilibrium Report. Not about sides, about outcomes.